Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
That intro just gets me so hyped. Absolutely hyped, guys. Welcome on into Fantasy Intervention. Oh, man, do we have another show in store for you guys? I got all sorts of fun stuff going on. Of course, right now, we actually have to talk about this Thursday night DFS slate. And then at 8 o'clock, I'm actually going to be live with Daddy's Home. We got a couple surprise guests for you guys. I'm absolutely stoked to be able to do that with y'all. But for right now, right? We're not going to be answering questions for this episode. We're going to be doing that at 8 o'clock. For right now, we actually have some DFS to cover, some DFS to hammer away, and some money to make. So, once again, guys, we have a little bit of a tough overall matchup over there in DFS land. I mean, it's just been like independent slate after independent slate that have been completely frustrating, to be honest. And we found a couple of different avenues, a couple of different ways to make a little bit of money. But, you know, it's just like, man, could you guys just throw us an easy one? Like, can we get like Kansas City, Miami on an independent slate, right? Can we get like the Giants and Cardinals on an independent slate? But no, we have to sit there and we have to get two crowded backfields up against each other when we talk about the Rams and the Patriots, right? We have to get one team with questionable wide receivers and another team that is very inconsistent in the passing game. It's something as to where, like, back if this game would have taken place like 2 weeks ago, I thought it would have been a blowout. It would have been super easy to actually predict. But it's something as to where now, like, we see like this Super Bowl rematch. We see this game that could be happening, and it's putting a whole entire different twist on things. I mean, Sonny Michel's healthy. He had, 10 carries this past week. You know, we have Damian Harris, who's absolutely smashing faces, and James White, who was involved in the passing game, only for it to get a little bit more questionable, you know, actually moving forward. Meanwhile, we had the Rams, who, hell, Cam Akers wasn't even really an afterthought, you know, outside of a couple big-time plays. And then all of a sudden he goes off and has, 22 touches this past week. And then he has an injury on top of that. Now, they do expect him to play, but my point being is the fact that there are so many different question marks. Everything across from, hey, is this New England defense for real? Or was Anthony Lynn just absolutely atrocious, you know, with his play calling? You know, is Justin Herbert just not feeling his game? You know, when it comes to the Rams defense, we thought that, you know, Troy Hill was somebody that we would never attack towards the beginning of the season, and everybody wanted to attack Darius Williams. And now it's like the exact opposite of what we actually expected to happen. So, man, it's something where, like, I normally have a direction that I want to go in and a direction that I want to attack. But with the New England Patriots and the limited amount of plays that they run and the limited amount of plays that they keep their opponents from running, this 44.5 point over-under, at least that's where I saw it landing, I don't know if it's actually like going to be over that. I mean, we could see a very run-heavy game where it's just pounded back and forth. You know, they get into third and long, so all of a sudden you get a turnover on third down when they're closing on the 20-yard line, just like we saw with one of the matchups as of late. So this is something where we're going to sit there and we're going to hope for good field position. We're going to hope for, you know, some banging running plays on first and second down. We're going to hope some of these slot wide receivers actually get involved. And yeah, just hope that the defenses can kind of lay off a little bit and get a little bit higher scoring game over there. You know, if it's not, then hopefully we make the right picks. But if it is, you know, hopefully we can find that perfect lineup and absolutely have it go off. But sitting there and looking at it, Cam Newton's the first guy that I actually want to cover. You know, Cam Newton's the first guy that I want to dive into 100%, just Cam Newton, because he's either straight fire or he's dog shit. Right? When it comes to the different stats, the different analytics, when trying to figure out who Cam Newton is, he's either pretty much take it all or just completely just throw it all in the garbage. I mean, 5th in pressure completion percentage, which is great, especially up against the Rams, because the Rams can get to the quarterback. 2nd in deep ball completion percentage. And he's about to break his own NFL record for quarterback rushing touchdowns. Meanwhile, his wide receivers are third overall in yards of separation per target. So they're getting open. They're getting open and he's able to hit them. But the weirder part is the fact that his RPO is absolutely atrocious in the red zone. I mean, he's 46th overall in red zone completion percentage. 46 out of quarterbacks in red zone completion percentage. That's insane. Like, that is most likely the worst quarterback in red zone completion percentage in the NFL in 2020. Meanwhile, we sit there, we look at the fact that he's 32nd in average air yards per attempt, and he's 31st in catchable passes. So, wait. I thought that he was actually hitting his receivers, and he is to an extent, but the thing is, like, the deep ball completion percentage, he's not attempting a ton of deep balls. So, although he is completing them, he's just not attempting them. You know, we sit there and we look at fifth in pressure completion percentage. Well, he's running so much, so he's not getting a ton of pressures up the middle. So for this game, right, it's something as to where, like, I want to gravitate towards Cam Newton and his ability to make plays, but I don't actually love it. I mean, it's something where the Rams in the beginning of the season were allowing red zone rushing touchdowns, you know, to the running backs. So it could have opened up this RPO for Cam Newton, but it's just something I can't get on with Cam Newton. I can't be like, oh man, he's a lock to play. You know, you want to play this guy even with his rushing upside. This Rams defense is just too good. And although they are actually kind of inefficient, or they have a deficiency in their defense when it comes to these short yardage type plays, it's not something that I want to hop on. I mean, if we just sit there and we look at the fact that over the past 5 weeks or so, Cam has 3 or more red zone carries, more so than he does passes. I just don't know if he's going to be able to poke it in past this LA Rams defense time and time again. Like I said, they do have the deficiencies. It is very, very possible, but do I want to rely on that? And how much upside does that actually carry? I'm not sure. I want to see Cam Newton passing. I want to see him open up the offense. I don't want to see him wasting downs and wasting plays trying to get 2 or 3 yards in the red zone. So we sit there and we look at his passing opportunities in the red zone. He has 33 total passes in the red zone so far this season, and only has 4 touchdowns on these 33 passes. He has 2 to N'Keal Harry, who will most likely, by the way, be up against Jalen Ramsey. That's great. He has 1 to James White, who is widely dependent on game script, which could be a good thing this week. And then he has 1 to their fullback, Jacob Johnson, however you end up saying his name. This is something where, like, that creates a huge doubt in my mind when it comes to his ability to actually deliver strikes inside the red zone, obviously. Now, it could be a good percentage to an extent, but it's something as to where, like, I don't know how much I want to rely on that, and I don't know how much I want to rely on stacks. Now, luckily, with the way that this pricing works out this week, you can actually play a good combination of Jared Goff with either one of his receivers when it comes to Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, or if you want to throw in, one of his running backs. But when you sit there and you're like, man, do I actually want to stack one of these guys with Cam Newton? You sit there and you're like, fuck no. Like, I don't want to see N'Keal Harry up against Ramsey. I don't want to see Bird up against Williams. He's been one of the best cornerbacks so far on the season. I mean, I believe he's only allowed like 1 touchdown and 5 interceptions on the year. That's absolutely insane. You know, maybe Jacoby Myers, but do I really want to stack these guys? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, fuck no, I don't want to do that. And then I go back and I look at the pricing. N'Keal Harry's sitting like 1,800 or 1,200 this week. You know, Damiere Byrd is sitting like 800. Damiere Byrd's playing like 50-plus snaps a game. I mean, these are literally in the prices of dart throws. And although it is a dart throw because you do need a touchdown in order for N'Keal Harry to be relevant. And by the way, Jalen Ramsey's done a great job at shutting down receivers who have his physical profile. All it takes is 1 touchdown. All it takes is 1 opportunity. All it takes is 1 zone play to where N'Keal Harry can actually get that. And with him being maybe not the primary receiver, because I think that Jacoby Myers is, N'Keal Harry could actually work out as a stack with Cam Newton. And although it might be a quote-unquote dart throw, it's probably one of the best quote-unquote dart throws you could have all season. I mean, when was the last time that the number 2 wide receiver on the team was either, whether you want to call it 1,800, 1,200, 800 for Damiere Byrd, like, when was the last time that happened? Now, I know there's not going to be volume there, so I don't want to rely on volume, which is why I don't want to rely on Jacoby Myers. But even Jacoby Myers is playable. I mean, sitting there and breaking it down, I'm looking over there, and he's averaging, less than 6 targets over the last 4 games. So like I said, I don't want volume, but there's still a way that he can actually get some production. The 49ers laid out a plan. The 49ers laid out a plan to sit there and crush this Rams defense. And it's by using the slot receivers in creative ways, getting them to shift around, getting them to move around. We saw it with Deebo Samuel. I mean, he had what, 5? I believe he had 5 plays. Yeah, 5 plays went for 24 yards or more. They were all short passes to Deebo Samuel. That's absolutely insane. So if they can move Jacoby Myers around, if they can use his RPO in the right way, try to get one-on-one coverage with Troy Hill, or get Troy Hill to kind of fade off and get coverage with the safety, you're talking about Jacoby Myers potentially seeing, 6, maybe 7 targets. But if he can get those yards after the catch, which Jacoby Myers is pretty good about overall, this could be a smash play. And if this was Julian Edelman back 2 years ago in this situation, which, by the way, is the same type of offense, you're going to be playing Edelman in almost every single lineup. So Jacoby Myers isn't that far off from a lock for me. I kind of like him. Myers isn't the same athlete as Deebo Samuel. He's not the same athlete as Edelman, but I still think that he's an absolute play this week because all it takes is one big play. And you're talking about some value you can return in, like I said, an over-under that is 44.5 points. It's a smash play for me. So maybe not a smash play. It's not my smash play of the week or anything, but it is a play that I want to explore. Meanwhile, they could move Bird there. Even Moncrief, they give some opportunity, who's been seeing some opportunity as of late. So I'll have each one of those guys in at least one lineup just to make sure I don't miss on them. But it's not really in hopes that they get a deep ball. The Rams have allowed the least amount of explosive pass plays so far in the season. I mean, they've been shutting teams down. Teams have not been able to get it downfield on them, primarily because of Darius Williams. But yeah, I'm sitting there thinking that Damiere Byrd, Moncrief are more than playable in at least one lineup. I think you guys can throw them in there as a dart throw as well. But pretty much all these guys, like I said, are dart throws. Speaking of explosive pass plays, 3 of the top 6 explosive pass plays allowed by the Rams was actually to the tight end position. The top 2 are actually to the tight end position as well. We saw it last week with Dan Arnold, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago with Dan Arnold. Either way, we saw it with Dan Arnold. And that makes this very, very interesting because 2 of the 3 tight ends that did have those explosive plays were pure pass catchers. They weren't involved at all in the blocking game. And guess what? Dalton King, the rookie over there, he's back in. Last week he played like 23, 24 snaps. And every time that he's actually able to play, outside of 1 week, I believe, he's actually had 47 snaps. So I should say at least 20 snaps per game. The 2 games combined for 47 snaps. So I know that he wasn't targeted last week, but like if McDaniels actually watches some game film, right? He watches the game film on the slot receivers. He watches the game film on the tight ends. He can actually put together a very solid option in this passing game, which I could love. And like I said, Dalton King takes one to the house for 40 yards, and that's a smash play. Like that's a play that you need in your lineups. So Dalton King for me could be a complete lineup breaker who probably will have less than 5% ownership and is probably my favorite dart throw on the entire slate, who is actually a true dart throw, especially when you see the prices compared to everybody else. Like when you see N'Keal Harry sitting there for $1,800 and Dalton King's at like $1,200. Once again, I don't remember the price off the top of my head. You're probably going to lean N'Keal Harry over Dalton King. You're not going to have too many people playing Dalton King, which is why he could be a roster breaker and get you into that top end lineup. So even in these high, money type contests where you're playing $9, you're playing $20, and you're playing to win $1 million, $500,000, whatever the price is, I love Dalton King in those deeper contests. Now, if we sit there, right, and we look at the weaknesses over the past 2 weeks, the Rams have showed weaknesses to the tight end and to, like I said, the slot position. So although this doesn't make Cam Newton a lock play for me, that he could have these big time plays, especially at his pricing, Cam Newton at least has to be considered in the pass heavy type lineups. In these lineups where, hey, we don't know if it's going to be high scoring or not, but we do at least think that there's going to be a passing game significant aspect to it. So if I'm sitting there and I'm going to be playing Dalton King, if I'm going to be playing, Jacoby Myers, I need to play Cam Newton in these slots because I know that Cam Newton will at least get the rushing upside. I know that he's at least going to get the red zone opportunities, the red zone looks when it comes to the rushing, and I know that he's going to be a major feature in the RPO. So with that being said, anytime that I'm playing at least 2 pass catchers, I'm going to be playing Cam Newton as well. But that's not saying you should be playing Cam Newton with one of the pass catchers in each one of these. I believe that the Rams are going to come in and be very, defense heavy. So if this is a low scoring game, even if it is pass heavy, you need to get these defenses in your lineup as well. Now, keep an eye as well on Izzo. He is, I guess, questionable, so he's still a play for me to an extent. I don't love him. I actually like Keen a lot more. But keep an eye on Izzo. And then, of course, Jordan Thomas as a flyer, if Izzo does not play, is an option for me. Now, when it comes to the running back room, this is extremely, extremely game script dependent. We see this all the time with the Patriots. If we see a weak gap up the middle, we know they're going to be going with a heavy dose of Sony Michel and, of course, Damian Harris. Meanwhile, if they're, have a little bit of a gap in the passing game, or if we think they're going to be losing, we're going to see a little bit of James White. However, this season, James White has been capped significantly. Significantly when it comes to his upside in the passing game, because guess what? Cam Newton doesn't pass a whole lot to the running back. And that's why it drove me nuts before the season. I'm sitting there screaming at the top of my lungs not to draft James White. I don't care if he's sitting there. I don't care if he's RB1 over there. He's still not going to get the same red zone looks and the same red zone efficiency he saw with Tom Brady. I believe he was in the top 3 minimum for red zone touches at any position over the past 2 years. And we weren't going to see that again with Cam Newton. It just wasn't going to happen. So if I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure it out and trying to figure out who I want to play, it's not something as to where I want to try and rely on big-time plays or explosive plays for the running backs. Damian Harris, he's had some explosive plays. He's had some 10-yard runs over and over and over again. That's not something the Rams are about. Overall, the Rams have been third best in explosive run rates allowed, just like how they led the league. Or I should say they were the best in the league in not allowing the explosive pass plays. So if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Damian Harris, who I love, I have to look at his pass catching opportunities, which he's only had 4 receptions on the season. That's brutal. I think he's had 5 total targets, maybe 6. Plus the limited breakaway run opportunities make me nervous. This is something where we look at the Rams and they've only allowed 2 games of over 4 yards per carry since week 4. To the running backs as a whole, like to the combined effort of the running backs, they've only allowed 2 games with over 4 yards per carry. Since week 4, right, which was against the Giants, we have Daniel Jones, who also runs the triple RPO, and then Kyler Murray, who does the same sort of thing, had kind of opened up lanes, which, by the way, makes me kind of a little bit confident that Cam Newton could do the same. But only the Rams had over the Rams only had 1 person since week 3 to actually have over 5 yards per carry. Excuse me. Yeah, the Rams have only allowed 1 team to go over 5 yards per carry since week 3. And guess what? That quarterback also runs. So this is something that's where I'm trying to sit there and figure out ways that I can make Damian Harris work, but it's not promising. But there is a chance there with Cam Newton. So if I'm playing Cam Newton, if I want to play Jacob Myers, Dalton Keene, if I think that the Patriots are going to dominate snaps, it could end up working out in that favor, but you also got to play Damian Harris. The issue, though, is the volume. None of the teams that I mentioned actually handed off the ball more than 18 times. So although they might have averaged over 4 yards per carry and then the one game with over 5 yards per carry, none of these teams ran it more than 18 times. This is something where I feel like it's going to be a dead end. We could talk about Sony Michel getting 8 carries, Damian Harris getting 10 carries, James White maybe get a few carries in there. And even if you add on 5 total carries on this game, maybe 10, there's still not a lot of upside to be had over there. So like I said, I'm mostly going to fade Henderson, but I can find opportunities as where I want to play him. Now, they have allowed a touchdown to the running back in each of the past 5 games. 3 of these carries came at the goal line. So I do think that Damian Harris is the option at the goal line, but still, once again, he's had 2 or 3 carries at the goal line in the past 5 weeks. So that's not promising either. It's normally Cam Newton that goes there. Meanwhile, Sony Michel wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked to see if he actually gets back in there. He got a touch on 50% of his snaps last week. If he was in the game, he was getting a touch on half of those snaps. So, yeah, I'm sitting there wondering what the upside of Harris is, and I just don't see it. Meanwhile, the Rams have only allowed one touchdown in the season to the running back in the air. You can pass on him, you can get yards on him, but James White's upside is capped as well. Now, I actually like James White and his pricing probably more than any of these guys when it comes to the ROI or the return on investment when it comes to getting the points versus his pricing. I think that James White probably has the best upside and probably the best value. Although if Sony Michel can punch in to him at the goal line, it is very possible. I just don't see that happening. It's something as to where I think that James White in tournaments is going to be one of my favorite plays. And in cash games, I'm probably going to lean more toward Harris, although Harris is still tough. Still tough. I think it's like 8,800 or something to get into your lineups and feel good about it. I mean, you're talking about getting 17, 18 fantasy points back once they have Sony Michel back and, James White's healthy. And yeah, I just don't see it up against this dominant defense. So it's something else where I understand that there are avenues that you can play these running backs. I'm probably going to be fading the majority of them. That's the other side of the running backs. I thought I had this easy. I thought that Henderson was going to take this and run away with it. But after he got a bump on his knee, we sat there and looked at opening the door for Cam Akers. So Cam Akers sits there, and Cam Akers is like, yeah, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this for 3.5 yards a carry now that I have the workload on 21 carries. Then I have 1 reception. I'm like, shit. Cam Akers didn't even do anything with the Rock last week. What makes you think he's going to do it? Something with the Rock this week up against the Patriots. Man, they're just doing this to make my job hard. They are doing this just to make my job hard. I know it. But let's just start with the fact that they expect Cam Newton to play. So this makes it tough. And like I said, Cam Akers saw the majority of the work last week, but Henderson on 3 carries and a couple receptions almost put up the same level of production. It kind of happened back a few weeks before that with when Darrell Henderson got all the carries, and then Cam Newton put up, 5, 6 carries and almost had the same level of production. It's back and forth with these guys. And when it comes to their efficiency, it's almost identical. Literally looking at it, they both average 4 yards per carry. Cam Akers has 2 touchdowns on the season. Meanwhile, Henderson has 5 touchdowns on the season. With this whole, I guess, trio of running backs, I wouldn't even be surprised if Malcolm Brown gets in 2 carries, at the goal line and ends up scoring. So I like Henderson's upside. I like his opportunity in the passing game. And you can't deny the volume, that he's getting in that passing game with the receptions. Meanwhile, you can't deny the volume that Cam Akers could get in the rushing game. Even with the shoulder, I'm actually going to lean Akers in this one. And this was tough for me to say. I honestly wanted, when I started this whole thing, I wanted to go Henderson. But the more I looked into it, the more that I liked the upside of Akers to an extent. And with the ownership, I don't think it's going to vary. Akers is 600 more, but he also has a Q tag right next to it, that little Q, which is going to scare a few people away. Not a lot, but a few. And I expect their ownership to be relatively close. I think that Henderson will be slightly less owned just because the DFS grinders are going to put in a ton of lineups. They're going to play a lot of Cam Akers because he did get so many touches last week, but I still think it's going to be very close. So I am going to lean Cam Akers in tournaments. In cash games, I'm probably actually going to go Henderson, although I normally go the opposite. I just don't know how much upside Henderson has in that receiving game. But I'm not building my lineup around the running backs on either team. Where I'm going to start most of my lineups is actually going to be on the quarterback side for the Rams. Even after Sean McVay kind of shit on him to an extent, and McVay's taken away his passing powers in the red zone, essentially, averaging less than a target or 1 red zone target per game less. This is something as to where, I like Jared Goff a lot. I think that he can produce even after we just saw the massacre that happened with the Chargers and the Patriots last week. I just think that there's so much opportunity to be had. And I know the Patriots are hot right now. I know that defense is on fire. But, yeah, I'm just not sitting there that motivated to play, too many of these other guys. So looking at it, Gilmore can get beat deep. So he's most likely going to be facing Robert Woods. And Robert Woods actually has 1 less play of 20-plus yards in the passing game than Cooper Kupp. But over 50% or 50% of the passing plays, over 50% of his passing plays that were deep, that went over 20 yards, came as deep targets. So with that being said, Gilmore actually struggles in the route running department. He can jump routes from time to time, and Robert Woods could absolutely take significant advantage of that. So I'm expecting Robert Woods to actually have a very good week moving forward, but I'm going to be pounding the table for Cooper Kupp. He's my number 1 play on this entire slate. 10 of 11 Cooper Kupp's plays of over 20 yards came as a short pass. So this is something as to where he's going to be facing up against, Jonathan Jones, who's allowed the 9th most yards per route covered to the wide receiver. Cooper Kupp is a master of getting those yards. And so the fact that Jonathan Jones is the 5th worst slot corner in yards allowed per route run, I'm going to be sitting there smashing Cooper Kupp. And it was they could take away certain aspects. It's okay, they tried to take away Lockett. That didn't work. They tried to take away Fuller. That went to hell. And then they couldn't even shut down Crowder. I mean, yeah, the Jets might have taken advantage of these deep balls and the fact that Perryman was just wide freaking open. Jamison Crowder still got 2 targets, 2 receptions, got some yards on that, and got a touchdown. And they didn't even need him. They didn't need him. So when I'm sitting there and looking at it, I think that Cooper Kupp is the number 1 player on this slate that I'm going to be playing. I'm going to have him in bonuses. I'm going to have him pretty much cash games, tournaments, everywhere. There won't be very many lineups where I don't have him. Lineups that I don't have him, I'm going to have him stacked with Robert Woods and either Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, or maybe go with one of the running backs if that's the case. Now, I love Reynolds. Reynolds is one of my favorite players, but Van Jefferson just outsnapped him. And at his price, you need Reynolds to at least get a touchdown in order to produce. And he's got most likely J.C. Jackson over there, who, by the way, got burned by Perryman, but he's actually been pretty good overall. Like I said, Reynolds at 5,600 is just too damn expensive. I mean, you need a touchdown. You're going to need probably 2 receptions for 40 yards minimum. And I think that Reynolds might be able to get in the end zone, but asking him to get 40 yards, 3 catches, touchdown, that's just not going to pay off. And that's going to be where you need him to hit the floor at. So unless you see Josh Reynolds going for 6 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown, you should probably stay away from Reynolds in the lineups. But like I said, I will have him in lineups that I don't play Robert Woods in and that I don't play Kupp in. But honestly, I want to take the dart throw at Van Jefferson. Like I said, he's outsnapped Reynolds, and he'll probably have a significantly high ownership. But I think he's worth the chalk that you can actually play. And I say chalk very loosely. I think he'll probably be 10% owned, maybe 15, because of the amount of dart throws that will be in this lineup. I kind of like him to be a contrarian play in a very chalky matchup with like a Damian Harris, Cam Akers type lineup. So that's where I'm leaning on that one. But yeah, Gerald Everett. Like I don't like the tight ends, by the way. The tight ends are something that I'm fading. But Gerald Everett, when I was looking into it, he lines up very similar to the same area that Jordan Akins lines up. And Akins actually put up 83 yards on them a few weeks ago. So Gerald Everett, once again, another deeper stash, and you're going to have to rely on a touchdown, which, by the way, the Patriots do not give up a lot of touchdowns at the tight end position. I think that Gerald Everett can still be a play, especially in the cash games. Now, Jared Goff as a whole, we're going to talk about Jared Goff real quick. Jared Goff as a whole is like my 2nd to 4th highest owned player from the lineups that I've already put in. I think that he could break 300 passing yards in this game, even though it's supposed to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to be playing him. I think that he can break 300 passing yards, and I think that he could get in 2 to 3 touchdowns. He's only gotten in 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in 4 times this season, but 3 out of the 4 times have come against a top 15 defense against the quarterback at the time that they play. So this is going to be a little bit tougher. This is going to be something as to where like, hey, yeah, this is something that most DFS experts are going to say you need to fade that. This should actually open up an opportunity for you to get a return on these points. So once again, if I'm trying to fit into a lot of lineups and I want to play Woods, I want to play Cooper Kupp, I want to play, Goff, and I want to play, let's just say Cam Newton, you're going to have to go with some of these dart throws. But guess what, man? The dart throws this week are insane. You have 8 to 10 players that you can use as dart throws that are below the 3K threshold. When we sit there, we talk about Bird, we talk about N'Keal Harry, we talk about Dalton Keene, Moncrief. We have Jacob Johnson. We got Malcolm Brown. I mean, these are all dart throws that, hey, you need them to get into the end zone. You do need them to get in the end zone in order for them to pay off, because guess what? There's probably going to be 2 or 3 of them that go off. But if you pick one of these right dart throws or 2 of these right dart throws, you're talking about a big-time tournament winner, and they are out there. So with that being said, guys, make sure you guys go check out thrivefantasy.com, and go grab yourself some of these lineups. Man, they do a different way of actually doing these prop bets, right? You can actually set DFS type lineups. So go to thrivefantasy.com, use these prop bets, set your own lineup, use promo code CIRCLE. When you guys use promo code CIRCLE, you will actually get your money doubled anywhere from $20 all the way up to $50. Get your money doubled, use promo code CIRCLE, and go to thrivefantasy.com. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys caught that. It was a lot. There's a lot going on with this matchup. I'm trying to dissect it, trying to break it down. But once again, another Thursday night or Monday night single slate matchup that was just, it's tough to kind of sift through. If I want to highlight it real quick, I love Cooper Kupp, of course, love Jared Goff, and I love the dart throws that you can play. It's going to be difficult for me to fit in lineups with Cam Newton and with some of these running backs. But if you set the right storyline, if you guys create the right mentality as you guys move across, there are lineups you can play where you can win a lot of money in this Thursday night matchup. And I don't say that often. I'm not normally like, oh man, this is the matchup you got to play. You got to throw a bunch of money into this. But if you play the right matchup with the amount of dart throws you have, this is a lineup, this is a slate that can separate you from the other DFS grinders that are out there, because there are so many different avenues you can go. So once again, guys, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you guys for letting me intervene with your fantasy football life. Enjoy. And make sure you guys tune in at 8 o'clock tonight. Later.